as always with this program, just the number of draft eligible players that are seniors, but just complemented by the number of players that have a decision to make because of their draft status as underclassmen. And of course, Chase Young is no surprise announced this week that he will be leaving to enter the NFL draft, as J.K. Dobbins announced right after the game, Jeffrey Okudah as well. Shaun Wade, as you mentioned just a few minutes ago, Steve, will be back. And so that's obviously good news for Buckeyes fans.
Yeah, it was at 12 o'clock Eastern time from his hometown, Jacksonville, Florida. Shaun Wade made the announcement that he will come back to Ohio State. He'll be a fourth-year junior in 2020. So he'll have this decision to make again next year. He was a key backup, probably the fourth cornerback on the team in 2018. You'll remember they had Kendall Sheffield, Damon Arnett, Jeffrey Okudah, and Shaun Wade. And Shaun Wade actually did get to play quite a bit because they rotated their corners quite a bit with Greg Schiano as the primary secondary coach last year. They rotated their corners quite a bit, so he did get to play quite a bit. But he was a full-time player this year. They played three cornerbacks almost exclusively all season, and that was Damon Arnett, Jeffrey Okudah, and Shaun Wade. And Shaun is a tremendous talent, a great athlete. He was a blue chip recruit coming out of high school in that great 2017 class. And now we'll have a chance probably be a team captain and be a leader for this team coming back and be the lockdown corner that you absolutely have to erase the opposing team's best receiving threat. My guess is they will flip him, move him all over the field, have him against slot receivers, have him against outside receivers. And really, I think that's important for him, is that he may have been known perhaps more as a specialist at the cornerback position, maybe more against inside receivers than outside guys. I don't know. I'm sure they played him all over. But my guess is, and again, there's a lot of speculation about who Ohio State is going to get to replace Jeff Hafley as the defensive backs coach. It seems like a lot of the smoke signals seem to be pointing toward a guy who was just at Ohio State a few years ago, Kerry Combs, who is actually coaching in the NFL playoffs for the Tennessee Titans as one of their secondary coaches, working for Mike Vrabel, former Ohio State player and assistant coach for a couple years under Urban Meyer. So it'll be interesting to see if Kerry Combs does leave the NFL ranks whenever Tennessee's playoff run ends. I think they're at New England tonight or tomorrow. I think one or the other. And, that could be the end of the line for them, obviously, if they lose at New England. And then if everything that we've heard is true, that maybe Kerry Combs will be coming to Ohio State. And that may be a lure for a Shaun Wade to work with an NFL caliber secondary coach, cornerbacks coach, and a guy who put so many guys in the National Football League. I mean, all those guys that were here, from 2 to 7 years ago, all played for Kerry Combs that are in the NFL now, like Lattimore and Conley and, so many of the other ones that he had. Roby played for him as well. So, it'd be interesting to see if that played into the decision, if that is a done deal. And obviously they're keeping wraps on that for right now, at least publicly, but it seems like that's where things are headed. And so to me, Wade would be an anchor for the defense. You'll have all three linebackers back. And my feeling is that Browning, who split time with Borland in the middle, would probably move outside to replace Malik Harrison. Seems to be the most obvious thing, unless one of the younger guys like a Taraja Mitchell or a Kevon Pope or Dallas Gant or somebody could earn a job and beat out one of the older guys, which, they seem to love them some Werner, Borland, and Browning. I mean, they play those guys come hell or high water. So, again, it is what it is. Good enough to win the Big Ten with those guys, but are they national championship caliber linebackers? I think that's a major question after we saw what Clemson was able to do. Then up front, you're losing Chase Young, obviously, off to the NFL. No surprise there. Jeff Okuda leaving, no surprise there. You're going to have Tyreek Smith, Zach Harrison, who really came on at the end of his freshman year and played like the blue chip guy that everybody expected him to be. Came out of his shell, was huge in the last 3 or 4 games. And Jonathan Cooper, who redshirted this year, he'll be a fifth-year senior, getting a medical redshirt this season. He did get to play in 4 games because of the rule, and he was healthy enough to do that, but should be fully healthy and helping them next year. To me, I think defense will be okay. They need to break in some new guys in the secondary. Obviously, Amir Reep filled in for Wade in the bowl game, and he did an okay job. I think he had a pass interference penalty on the second or third play after Wade was given the gate. But after that, settled down and played pretty well. They've got 7 Banks in that rotation as well. I'm looking at my sheet. Cameron Brown is another guy who has played a little bit. And then, flipping over to the other side, just real quick, talking about Dobbins. We could spend an hour talking about what Dobbins meant to this team. The first 2,000-yard rusher in a season in Ohio State history, and that takes in Eddie George, Archie Griffin, Ezekiel Elliott, Keith Byers, Tim Spencer, and so many other great running backs. He set a standard, I think, that'll be hard to match, and went out with one of the most courageous performances I think anybody could recall with the way that he played in that game. Not perfect. Drops the 1 touchdown that's reviewed and dropped a screen pass when he had blockers out in front of him. It appeared he may have scored in the red zone had he not turned upfield before he had secured the pass on that one. And basically, I'm coming around the bend to say replacing him is going to be very difficult, I think, for Ohio State going to 2020. But, as I looked at it, something like 5 or 6 starters back on both sides of the ball, maybe a few more on offense, actually, including the quarterback. And just think of the magic. They're going to score 35 or 40 points nearly every game. And when you think about if they get a good running game situation going, which I think between Teague and Crowley and Steel Chambers and whoever they bring in, Mayan Williams, maybe they'll find an aftermarket running back in the transfer portal that can help energize the run game a little bit. They're going to score 35 or 40 points a game because you have Justin Fields, 41 touchdowns against 3 interceptions this year, throwing the ball to Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and this Julian Fleming, who was in the game the other night, the Under Armour game, caught like a 40-yard touchdown in that game. He's going to be hard to keep off the field too. So they've got some studs on offense. And to me, again, the next season may not look too far different than what we saw this year.